My name is Arielle Morgan, and at my parents' 35th anniversary party, they erased me. Not with shouting, not with a dramatic fight, but with silence. They uninvited me, they gave my carefully chosen gift to my sister, and they smiled in photos, while I sat alone staring at the rain tapping my kitchen window. I wasn't mentioned, I wasn't missed, I was invisible. But what they didn't know was that the man my sister brought to the party, her new boyfriend, was my employee. And when he raised a glass and toasted to me by name, the truth crashed their perfect illusion like shattered glass. They tried to rewrite me out of the family, but they couldn't erase the truth of who I'd become. Have you ever been cut off by your own family, just because you didn't fit into their story? What would you do if the people who once erased you suddenly needed you? Let me know in the comments. And if you believe Arielle made the right choice, vote 2. If not, vote 7. Subscribe now for more true stories that hit deep. Every single day I'm 33 years old. I live in Tacoma, Washington, and I'm one of the co-founders of TerraCore, a renewable energy startup that now powers over half the city grid. But in my parents' eyes, I was never the success story, not the way they defined it. My dad used to wear his military medals even when mowing the lawn. My mom once corrected my grammar during a eulogy. They loved structure, obedience, applause in public, and loyalty behind closed doors. My younger sister, Kaley. She fit right in, she sparkled. Homecoming Queen Drama Club, lead effortlessly, magnetic. She had a way of pulling people into her orbit, especially my parents. Meanwhile, I was steady, quiet, obsessed with circuits, data clean energy models. I didn't hug enough, I didn't cry at the right times. I asked too many questions. When I launched my first product at 26, they didn't come to the event. But when Kaley sold 2 mediocre paintings at a local cafe, they rented a space for her exhibit and invited the entire family tree. Still, I stayed, I kept calling, kept showing up for birthdays, anniversaries, and silent, polite Christmases. When their 35th wedding anniversary approached, I told myself this time would be different. So I picked out a gift with care. A hand-carved walnut clock with our last name engraved in gold across the face. I had it made by an artisan in Seattle. No Amazon shortcuts. Then I wrote a card, not typed, not copy-pasted, but written slowly by hand. A page filled with gratitude, memories, and hope. I wrapped the gift carefully, tied it with navy ribbon, and placed it on my kitchen table. 1 week before the party, I called my mother. I still remember the weather, gray skies, spring drizzle. The phone rang twice. She picked up. I offered to come early, help set up, maybe bring extra wine or flowers. She hesitated. A clinking in the background. Then her voice, soft, cautious. "Oh, Arielle, it's going to be a lot this year," before I could ask what she meant. My father's voice cut in. "It's better if you don't come." "No." Pause, no sugarcoating. I stood there frozen. And then came the line that stuck with me. "Kaley's bringing someone important. We don't want too much going on." Not too much going on. As if my presence was noise. As if I was the problem. I didn't cry. Not then. I just stared at the gift I had spent weeks preparing. And for the first time, it hit me fully. They weren't just forgetting me. They were choosing to erase me. I didn't go to the party. I stayed home. I lit a candle, poured myself a glass of wine, and stared at the clock on the wall. Like it might somehow rewind everything back to before the call, but it didn't. Time just moved on, and so did they. 3 days later, I saw the first photo online. It showed my parents under white string lights holding champagne. My mother's favorite lilies lined the buffet. The caption read, "An unforgettable night. So proud of Kaley for organizing everything so perfectly." I blinked, then zoomed in. Kaley stood in the middle, radiant in a champagne-colored dress, holding my gift, the hand-painted clock, the one I commissioned, the one I had wrapped in navy ribbon. Now in her hands, presented as if it came from her, no mention of me, not even a passing word. It was like I had never existed. I scrolled down, heart thudding quietly against my ribs. More photos, more captions. Couldn't ask for a better daughter. "Kaley, you made this night so special." And then the comments. "Where's Arielle? She didn't even show up? Wow, can't believe she skipped this." Some people just hate being overshadowed. Overshadowed. I closed the app, but the words clung like smoke in my lungs. They hadn't just celebrated without me. They'd rewritten the narrative entirely. Kaley wasn't just the golden child now. She was the thoughtful one, the selfless one. And me, I was a ghost. The next morning, I found the card still sitting on my counter. Unopened, unread. I pressed my thumb against the seal. I didn't open it either. Just looked at it the same way you look at a version of yourself you no longer recognize. That night, I sat at my kitchen table again, not with tears, not with wine, but with a silence that felt deeper than any sadness I'd known. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I wanted to disappear from their version of me. I didn't post a comment. I didn't send a text. But I knew something they didn't. I knew who Kaley's boyfriend was. His name was Drew. He'd just been hired at TerraCore as a business analyst. He reported directly to my team. And 2 days after that party, he was scheduled to attend our quarterly onboarding session, where I gave the keynote to every new hire. I didn't plan anything. I didn't have to. The truth was already on a collision course with the fiction they built. But before that moment came, I needed space. So I did what I always do when the noise gets too loud. I went quiet. I walked around my apartment that evening like I was seeing it for the first time. The succulents on the windowsill, the framed prototype sketches from our first product, the chair I'd bought secondhand in grad school that still creaked like an old friend. I wasn't sad anymore. I was awake, fully painfully awake. They hadn't just excluded me from a party. They'd rehearsed my erasure for years, laughing off my promotions, forgetting my birthdays, cropping me out of photos, mistaking my silence for insignificance. But I wasn't insignificant. And soon, they were going to find that out. Not because I planned it, not because I forced it, but because the truth has a way of surfacing, especially when you've buried it beneath enough lies. And this time, the truth had a name, a title, and a conference badge. Drew. He had no idea who I was to Kaley. No clue what I had just seen. No warning of what was coming. And I wasn't going to give him one, because sometimes the most powerful confrontation is none at all. It happened on a Thursday. The room was filled with new hires, neatly dressed, eyes alert hands, gripping branded notebooks. I stood just behind the curtain of our main conference room at TerraCore headquarters. We were kicking off a new cohort, and as always, I would deliver the welcome speech. Drew sat in the second row, button-down shirt, polished shoes. Looking a little nervous, he hadn't seen me yet. He'd probably walked into this room expecting a typical HR presentation. He didn't know his boss, the woman he'd toasted days ago, was the same woman his girlfriend's family had just tried to erase. As the event began, I stepped out under the warm lights. I didn't introduce myself right away. I started with our values, our mission, our culture of integrity. Then I paused, looking across the room. Leadership, I said, isn't about volume. It's about clarity. I let the words sit for a beat. Then I finally said it. My name is Arielle Morgan, co-founder, lead strategy officer, and to many of you, your new direct supervisor. Eyes widened. A few gasps, and in the second row, Drew froze. His back straightened. His eyes met mine, and he smiled. Warm, respectful, genuine. He had no idea what that moment meant. Not yet, but someone else would. Because that night after the session ended, Drew went to a family dinner at Kaley's apartment. It was casual. Takeout containers, mismatched wine glasses, the kind of forced comfort people create when guilt is nearby. My parents were there, so was Kaley. Drew told them about the onboarding. And then, without knowing what he was setting off, he lifted his glass and said, "To Arielle. She's brilliant. TerraCore's lucky to have her." The room fell silent. My father dropped his fork. My mother blinked too fast. Kaley went pale. Drew noticed. "Wait, you all know Arielle, right?" he asked. And in that instant, something cracked. The story they'd built, the version of me they told, no longer held. Drew didn't just speak my name, he unknowingly shattered their control. From that point forward, they couldn't pretend anymore. Not in front of him, not in front of each other, not even in front of themselves. 3 days later, the text started. First, Mom, Arielle, honey, we're sorry about how things looked. It wasn't what we meant. Then Dad, family's complicated. Let's not hold on to things. Let's talk. And finally, Kaley. Please don't be mad. You know how intense these parties get. Can we start over? I didn't reply, because halfway through Kaley's message came the truth. Also, since you work with Drew, maybe you could mentor him. You've always been good at guiding people. It'd mean a lot to us. There it was. The apology wasn't about me. It was about access control. They didn't miss me. They missed what I could do for them. And that was the moment, the one where something inside me shifted. It wasn't rage. It wasn't grief. It was clarity. Cold, final, clean. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I blocked all 3 numbers. Click, 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 3 soft sounds. But each one louder than any argument we'd ever had. That was the moment I stepped away. Not with drama, not with revenge, just truth and boundaries. I wasn't their daughter who begged to be seen anymore. I wasn't the one bringing gifts they'd pretend to forget. I wasn't the name they could erase. I was the boss, the one they needed, and now finally the one who no longer needed them. After I blocked them, I didn't cry. I didn't second-guess myself, didn't reread the messages, didn't draft a reply I'd never send. I just sat in the dark of my kitchen, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the soft tick of the second hand on the wall clock. The same kind of silence that once haunted me, now felt earned. But peace doesn't last long when the people who once controlled the narrative feel it slipping. 2 days later, a cream-colored envelope appeared under my door. No stamp, no return address, just my name written in my mother's rushed familiar handwriting inside a single note. We know texting wasn't enough. Can we meet? Just a talk. Love, Mom, love. That word used to feel like an anchor. Now it felt like bait. Still, I said yes. Not because I wanted reconciliation, but because I needed confirmation that walking away wasn't weakness. We met at a small cafe, downtown Neutral Ground. No memories. When I arrived, they were already seated. Mom, Dad, Kaley squeezed into a booth made for 2. They half stood when they saw me, unsure whether to hug me or sit back down. I didn't help them decide. I just slid into the opposite seat. They tried small talk. First, weather work. How mature Drew seemed. I didn't engage. Finally, my mother leaned in. Sweetheart, we just want to move past this. No more misunderstandings. My father nodded, his voice low, and practiced family's too important to let little things get in the way. And Kaley, with her best pageant voice, added, You know how people twist things. You can't believe everything online. I waited. I let them run through their lines. Then I said calmly, If you're truly sorry, say it publicly. To the people you lied to, the family who commented, the friends you misled. They froze. Mom's smile cracked. Dad checked his watch. Kaley twisted the strap of her designer purse. Arielle, Mom said, her tone sweet but sharp. There's no need to create more drama, Dad followed. Dragging up old wounds? That's not healing, that's punishment. Kaley chimed in, airy and dismissive. Besides, no one even remembers anymore. Let it go. I looked at them, really looked, and finally saw them for what they were. Not villains, not monsters, just people who feared losing control more than they valued truth and their version of healing. It required my silence. I set my untouched coffee down. The porcelain clinked softly. Then I stood up. I didn't shout, didn't throw the drink, didn't deliver a dramatic monologue. I simply said, I'm done crossing lines to stay in rooms that never wanted me. A few heads turned. I didn't care. Their faces tight, stunned, embarrassed, didn't move me. I walked out into the afternoon air cooler than I remembered, and I didn't look back. That night, I drove straight to my office. It was nearly 9 p.m. The building was quiet, most lights off. I went to my desk, turned on the lamp, and pulled up every file that tied me to them financially. Mortgage payments I'd been making quietly on their second home, canceled. Private health top-ups I'd been paying to keep Dad's injuries off insurance records. Revoked monthly emergency deposits into Kaley's backup fund, terminated. No message, no confrontation, just done. I opened my banking apps, disabled every auto transfer, printed the receipts, saved the files, closed the tabs. Then I blocked their email addresses. One click at a time, not out of cruelty, out of clarity. They had depended on my silence, on my loyalty, on my sense of duty, and for years I gave them that. But I finally saw the pattern. I was only useful when I was useful. Love came second. So I ended the transaction, not with fire, but with precision. And as I sat back in my chair, hands still on the mouse, a quiet thought floated up. Maybe this isn't revenge. Maybe this is self-respect. And for the first time in years, I believed it. 3 days later, I got an email. Subject line, "You should see this." No greeting, no signature, just an anonymous sender and 4 attached screenshots. I almost deleted it. But something made me click. The first image was a Reddit thread, anonymous, of course. Someone accusing me of favoritism at Pacific TerraCore, saying I promoted people unfairly, claimed I'd used my role to settle personal vendettas. The second image was an email, poorly forged with my name at the bottom, implying I'd blocked someone from a promotion because of family politics. It was laughable, but damaging. Because in this business, facts don't travel nearly as fast as whispers, and the whispers had begun. My heart didn't race, I just leaned back. Took a slow breath because I recognized the language, the tone, the phrasing. My father had always had a way of sounding professional even when condescending. Kaley's sarcasm always leaked through, even when she tried to sound polished. It reeked of them. They couldn't win with affection, so now they'd try manipulation, try to poison the world I'd built, try to drag me back into their version of the story where I was bitter, unstable, dangerous. They didn't know I'd already seen the ending, and I wasn't in it. I spent the next 2 nights in my office, not out of panic, out of purpose. I opened every folder, every backup file. Compiled a quiet war chest, bank statements showing mortgage payments made in my name, health insurance receipts tied to their clinic visits, screenshots of texts, Kaley begging for cash, Dad demanding I keep things off the books, email threads where I'd recommended candidates through standard HR pipelines with time-stamped approvals. I organized everything dated, indexed, annotated. Then I requested a private meeting with legal and 2 board members. No dramatic accusations, no trembling voice, just facts. They listened, took notes, asked 2 questions, then nodded. I left the room with no fanfare and waited. The Pacific TerraCore Annual Leadership Summit arrived fast, a gathering of over 400 investors, policymakers, executives, and press. I wasn't slated to speak, didn't need to, because by the second hour of the summit, the whispers had reversed course. I saw heads turn toward me, not with suspicion, but with something harder to shake: respect. The board had quietly issued an internal memo. No names, no press leak, but the message was clear. The leadership and ethics of this company remain unimpeachable. Attempts to defame key personnel have been traced and will be handled legally. Later in the press lounge, I overheard someone say, "Honestly, whoever tried that smear job should have known better. Arielle's as clean as they come." I didn't correct them, didn't clarify, didn't gloat. I just sipped my coffee, and for the first time in years, I felt safe in my own skin. Not small, not erased, solid. After the summit, I stepped outside. The air was brisk, the sky low with winter light, and I smiled. Not the forced kind I used to wear at family dinners, a real one, because they hadn't just lost control. They'd lost access. They couldn't spin me anymore, couldn't frame me as difficult or jealous or distant. Because now I had receipts, and I had peace. But of course, peace doesn't last long when people like them feel exposed. That weekend, I got a message from an old family friend, just a casual post on Facebook, tagged loosely. Some kids forget where they came from. Success isn't an excuse for arrogance. Then another message. A cousin. Heard you cut your parents off after everything they did for you. That's cold. Then Mrs. Partridge, my old math teacher, posting a vague, sanctimonious quote about ungrateful daughters who forget who held the umbrella in the rain. It was subtle, but it was strategic. They were rebuilding the narrative fast, casting me as cold, ruthless, entitled. And they were clever enough to never say my name. Just enough for people to fill in the blanks. At first, it stung. It always does. But that night, I sat on my balcony. Warm blanket, hot tea. No screens, and I realized something simple. They could lie louder. I'd just live better. Let them gossip in low rooms. I had higher ceilings now. A few weeks passed. The chaos faded. The fake stories slowed. The messages stopped. And for the first time in a long, long while, The silence wasn't a threat. It was a choice. I found myself walking by the lake one Sunday afternoon. Hands in my coat pockets, the air crisp and clean, like freshly laundered linen. The sun was low, throwing gold across the water. I sat on a bench near the path, and from my purse, I pulled out something old, a birthday card. The one I wrote years ago, still sealed, still unread. Dear Mom and Dad, I love you, I'm proud of you, I hope one day you'll be proud of me too. The edges were bent, the ink slightly faded. I held it for a long time. Then I left it there on the bench. No name, no signature. A goodbye they'd never see. But one I needed to give. As I walked away, the wind picked up. The card lifted lightly, danced a few steps, and then landed gently in the grass. And I didn't look back, because that version of me, the one who stayed quiet, kept giving, kept hoping, was gone. What remained was someone who understood the difference between love and control, between family and obligation. They didn't miss me. They missed the version of me who gave without limit, the version who forgave without apology, the version who stayed small so their comfort could stay big. But that version of me doesn't exist anymore. And I'm not mourning her. I'm honoring her by leaving her behind. Some goodbyes don't need words, just the decision to walk forward with your head high, your voice steady, and your truth untouched. What did you think of Arielle's story? Was she cold for walking away? Or was she finally warm enough toward herself to stop standing in the cold? Some people think choosing yourself means abandoning others, but sometimes choosing yourself is the only way to survive when love is weaponized. She didn't need revenge, she didn't need applause, she just needed clarity. And in the end, she gave herself the closure no one else was willing to offer. Have you ever had to walk away from the people who were supposed to love you most? Was it out of anger or out of peace? Let me know in the comments, and if you think Arielle did the right thing. Vote number 2. If you believe family deserves second chances, no matter what, vote number 7. Don't forget to subscribe to EN True Tales, where every day we share raw, real stories like this one. Stories that remind us truth doesn't always come with a hug. Sometimes, it just comes with a door gently closing behind you, and that's okay.